is shift your perspective. The second key is look below the surface for strength. So imagine you're standing on a bridge, right? On the top of a bridge looking out. Everything looks great. As a founder and as an investor, it's really easy to get stuck in that view. Everything's fine. Look, I can see it. Everything that's in front of me. Where do you think the chaos is actually happening? Underneath. All of the strength and all of the chaos for that bridge is not something you can see unless you're willing to look at it from a different perspective. Every single gusset, every single bolt, everything underneath there is the culture that is holding up the results that everybody else sees on the surface level. It's how we think, it's how we act, it's how we interact as a team. All of that is underneath the surface. So I want to tell another story here. Do I have any Indianapolis Colts fans in the room? No, I usually don't. It's okay. I'm still going to tell a story about them. But it does seem appropriate. Do we have any Gopher fans in the room? Yes? I'm a Hawkeye, so I was okay if nobody was going to cheer. I got some Hawkeyes in the room. Okay, we'll talk later. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story about Ben Utek. How many of you are familiar with Ben Utek? Ben's not in the room, is he? I was actually wondering he might be here. No, okay. I'm going to tell a story about him anyway. So Ben and I have been friends for years. Ben and I have done work together. We've trained. And what Ben has done for me, and for some of you who know, he played for the Gophers, then he went to play for the Colts. He's a Super Bowl champion with the Colts. He now does a lot of culture work, which is my jam. So we have a lot in common there. And he's taught me the parallels between the sports field and the boardroom, right? Between what they do in practice and what we do day in, day out in our businesses. So I want to tell the story about the Colts from my perspective, as Ben has told me during that 2006 Super Bowl run. So here's the thing about the Colts, and I have to actually read these stats because there's always some sports nut in the room that tells me one of my stats is wrong. So I'm going to actually read them to get them right. So the 2006 Colts, they surrendered 5.33 rushing yards per attempt. At the time, it was the 7th worst in NFL history. But they had the statistically most efficient offense in the league. They entered the playoffs as wild cards. They won the conference championship against the Patriots. They were down 21-6 at halftime and came back to win that game, and it was a record-breaking comeback. In the Super Bowl against the Bears, some of you might remember, the opening kickoff, the Bears returned for a 92-yard return to score in the opening kickoff of the game. And the Colts came back to win. So, again, not a bunch of Colts fans. It's 2006. Why is she telling us this story? Because I want to ask you, why did a team that should never statistically have won the game, any games for that matter, how did they win a Super Bowl? What was it? Give me some ideas. Why do you think they won a Super Bowl? Yeah. Tony Dungy. It's very good. That's a big part of it. Any other ideas? There's not one reason. And I'm going to talk about Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning in the era of the Colts, which books will be written on for a long time. It was a very unique leadership era for football. But you know how they won games? Because of their huddle. You know, the huddle, that thing that happens 60 to 70 times every football game. When we're grabbing another beer and another bag of chips during a TV timeout, they're going to where their strength is. Ben talks about his performance review. A huge part of it was how he acted in the huddle. They would videotape practice. They would videotape games and point out if he wasn't giving good eye contact to Peyton Manning, right? If the team wasn't performing the way they expected him to perform in the huddle. Because the huddle was their team's chance to come back together, to love, care, and respect for each other, and to make sure the next play was successful. And they got 60 to 70 times every game to come back together, to regroup, and decide what to do next. They knew what their strength came from. Their strength came from that team aspect and how they treated each other. And they knew every play might not be perfect. They might not do everything the way they're supposed to do, but if they come back to their strength every time, they were going to win games. And they get paid to win games. So my question for you, investors, founders, leaders, do you know where the strength of your team comes from? And are you willing to invest in it week in and week out to win? Does your team know how to win? Not on an annual basis and not in a Series D round and 17 years from now. Do they know how to win now? Because if you want the ultimate dream team, it comes down to every day, every week, and every month, and making sure their energy and their love and respect for each other is where it needs to be. We change that, I don't think any of us is going to have to worry about business results. I think the business results are going to be there if we invest in the people. The third key